All right, thank you for being back here, and we're going to go a little bit into the lunch hour, but we want to make sure that everybody gets the full benefit of our panelists' presentations. So we're going to go ahead at this point with our second presentation on diversion before diversion. In this session, Judge Rocky Jones of the 203rd District Court in Dallas County and Vickie Rice, the Special Programs Division Chief of the Dallas County Public Defender's Office, are going to discuss diversion techniques and considerations for the beginning of a case before formal diversion programs are considered. Welcome, Judge Jones and Ms. Rice.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, well, first of all, let me say we will try our best to give you some time back. Because okay, she said we won't, so maybe we won't. It just depends. It just depends. So I am Raquel Rocky Jones, and this is Mrs. Vickie Rice. But
Dallas County Public Defender's Office in the house.
Well, I see you have some fans in the back. So I was going to give the formal introduction because she is actually the interim first assistant for the Public Defender's Office.
Nobody else wanted the job.
So we'll put all the titles on there. So I will tell you, we were so excited when we were asked to come speak about this topic because most people don't understand that you can get diversion programs started before they get started. Does that make sense to everybody? We can get them started before they get started. So what we're going to do today is hopefully get y'all excited about this topic.
Coach is gonna. This is what we try to let you know when we think about our youth. I think I was, 13? His name was Marvin. Don't know what Marvin's doing right now. But the flashbacks.
Okay, I will give anybody $20 if they could do that dance.
I will add to that because one thing I will say about MC Hammer, though he's gone through his ups and downs, the man could dance. Okay, he could energize a room. Regrettably, we don't have the parachute pants. We can't move like that anymore.
Well, speak for yourself.
That's true.
So the reason we did that is because, one, we do want people to understand that we are, of course, talking about very serious topics here. But more importantly, we have to be excited about diversion because diversion can lead to cases being either dismissed or waived or they go away. Because what is the number one thing we keep hearing about now, well, at least in Dallas County? Jail population. And we hear, we have too many cases that are on dockets. Well, you know what? If we do this right in the beginning, then just maybe we won't have as many people in the criminal justice system. So we will tell you, me and Vickie will tell you, everyone in this room, y'all are all college educated. Everybody in this room. So we will not read to you. There are things that will be on the screen, but we will not read all the words to you because we are assuming that you can read them for yourselves. Plus, also, you will be able to receive a copy of the PowerPoint. But the things we wanted to point out on this screen is with Yogi Berra. Everybody knows who Yogi Berra was, correct? I just see some nodding. We're going to have some crowd participation here today.
Yes.
So
voluntarily or involuntary.
The thing that I loved about him, so the last time we did this presentation, I love him because y'all know he's known for some of his great quotes. And so when this one, it says, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And I'm like, well, that's just as basic, but it makes sense. But I actually like some other quotes that he had, and I just had to read at least one or two to y'all. One of my favorite is, a nickel ain't worth a dime anymore. Have y'all ever heard that before? And when he says, we made too many wrong mistakes. That sounds like my court every day. Because I have the Atlas program, which is achieving total liberty and success free of drugs and alcohol. So I have a dual diagnosis specialty court. And so I tell people at least once a day, we can make mistakes, but we have to make new mistakes. We can't keep making the same mistake. And so when I saw that Yogi Berra apparently thinks the same way that Rocky Jones does, I had to, of course, use that quote. And then the last one I'll leave you with, I thought it was hilarious. He says, always go to other people's funerals, otherwise they won't come to yours. So I was like, you know, he's a man after my own heart. But as y'all can see, diversion is a broad term, right? And it is just an exit ramp. So when we say an exit ramp, that is getting you off of the path to the criminal justice system. We want to defer you away from the criminal justice system. So in order to do that, we look at what is the purpose behind diversion. The main purpose is, as you can see from the highlighted portions, is we want to remove those minimal risk cases, those cases that may not be the bullets and bodies, as I used to call them when I was a prosecutor. You want to remove those lower cases off of your docket. We want to what? We want to reduce the problem and the things that are going on when we talk about overcrowding. Everybody wants to talk to us about overcrowding, but nobody is trying to help us fix that. And we don't mean just opening doors and letting people out. We mean giving them wraparound services. We mean if you want to address overcrowding, well, where is another place that people can go where they can receive assistance? We want to what? Help and avoid negative results and reduce recidivism. People like to use these keywords and it sounds really good, but unless we can do something to affect these situations, this is why we say that if you can get people in diversionary programs, then maybe we can reduce some of these things. And lastly, help offenders address the underlying issues. Maybe if we know what the root of the problem is, and as being a public defender, Vickie always will tell someone, you got to realize what is going on in those people's household. You got to realize what's going on in their life. Vickie, what else did you have on that one?
Well, the whole beauty of diversion is, and what we frequently say about diversion is, we know individuals with behavioral health issues and needs, sometimes they manifest with criminal contact. The first time you will see an individual who may be in need of services, family may not even know that they're in need of services. It's going to be a criminal contact. We've done a lot in this day and age regarding problem-solving courts, but the question is just as Judge Jones says, can we divert these people out from even coming into the system? And if they're in the system, how can we lay the foundation so that they quickly get out of the system? Because make no mistake, this system is traumatic. It in and of itself is creating its own trauma. Imagine being 18, getting into a fight with your brother and sister, police is called, you're now in jail. Back in the day, and I am gonna date myself, you're gonna hear a lot of 80s and 90s music in this PowerPoint. If you got in a fight with your brother or sister, somebody went to one side of the room, the other person went to the other side of the room, maybe you got a pop, maybe you had dessert taken, now you go to jail? Oh my God, my criminal record would be a mile long for all the atrocities I created in Bennettsville, South Carolina. Please don't go look, and what have you. And so our goal here is for you to open up your mind. Each and every person that sits here can start an individual off on their diversion path. And it's not necessarily that everyone's gonna get a PTI or everyone's going to get their case dismissed. Our whole goal is for you that if you're coming into contact with me, with Judge Jones, with one of you, the individuals are better off than when we met them.
And as you'll see even from our slide here, if you talk to any person who recently got arrested, they will say yes to whatever pretrial or diversion program. When they come in there, I will do whatever you say, Judge. Because what is the main goal? They want to stay out of jail. But the problem is some of the ask that we require, oh, I'm going to need you to stay off drugs and alcohol. I'm going to need you to be gainfully employed. We have some situations where, bless their heart, we're just kicking that can down the road. Whereas if we get in front of the issue and the problem, maybe we can keep them out of jail or keep them out of getting in more trouble. As you can see, and Vickie gave me this quote when I first talked to her about, hey, I think we should start talking to people about what we can do to keep people out of the criminal justice system. And she told me this, and I was like, wow, you're kind of smart. Provide and bring a holistic approach with wraparound services. And so I'm like, wraparound services? And so she starts talking to me about, well, Rocky, if they have this in place or if they have this in place, then by the time they possibly get to a felony court, if the DA's office is going to go forward with it, they've already knocked out half the things that you would require in your program already. And I was like, oh. And so that is how we kind of came up with the inception of this program.
Now understand this, and I know this kind of chills some defense attorneys. Why should this person be required to do this? They're not guilty of the offense. Why should the person be required to do this? The case hasn't gone to trial. None of what we're ever asking an individual to do is because we think that this is based upon the merits of the case. We're going down, and as I like to say, we like to pull it out not by stem but by root. Something has caused you to come into contact with law enforcement. Something has caused you to come into the system. Again, we want you to be better off. And that individual has never been offered the opportunity for services. Again, I'm not saying you need to meet with a probation officer, give a UA, do 40 hours of community service, because that's what a lot of people hear when they hear wraparound services. We're not talking about that. We're talking about if you're sitting up here and you're 18 and you want to go to college, let's sit down and let's talk about what it means to go to college. And that if you're actually in the system and you're homeless and you want to go to college, let's talk about how we can make college your home, how we can get you a job, how we can further you along so that at the end of the day, we're addressing all those barriers that are going to make life just absolutely impossible for you to navigate the system. Our clients will say anything to get out of jail, anything. I can show up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'll be here and I'll have 15 things done. And I always sit at the table and say, I struggle just to get 2 kids out of the door. One has a car. I don't know why she's late. I'm not even taking her. This one's clothes have been laid out for a whole week. All you're eating is cereal. And we live 2 steps from the elementary school. Literally, my son did the gritty from the front door to the elementary school, and it took him 5 minutes. Sir, why are you late? But we're getting ready to ask individuals who have so much going on with them to show up on time, to not use drugs, to get medication compliant, to get a driver's license, to get a job, to do all these basic things that we ourselves, who I feel we're better situated, struggle to do.
Yeah. And the reason we put this slide up is because when we first start talking about this, the first thing, let me get a show of hands. How many attorneys do we have? Attorneys, judges? All right, thank you. Look at this one putting her hand up. So the reason we put this slide up is because when we gave this talk at pretrial services, the first thing they want to say is, well, I don't want to have to be the lawyer. I'm not trying to be, or I don't want to be the pretrial officer. That's not what I get paid to do. You are absolutely correct. We are not asking you to be probation officers. We're not asking you to be pretrial officers. But if those lawyers just get in front of some of these things, we're just asking you just to get in front of it. You're more like troubleshooters, right? That's what we're asking you to do. You can identify what some of these issues are. Because with some, if you notice, like the very top one, that home life, man, if you can imagine some of the issues that they are going back into, and Lord help it when it spills over into your courtroom and you're like, oh, I see why these things are happening. I get it. But what we're asking people to do is go ahead and be that troubleshooter. Go ahead and figure out what is the issue, what is the problem, because if you do that, then hopefully it will make the case a lot easier, and you're not always 2 steps behind trying to figure out, well, what do we need to do to try and get them into this specialty court? What do we need to do to get them into this diversion program if you've already looked at some of the issues that will cause them problems if they get in the program?
And lawyers, you're helping yourself. Because if your client doesn't show up, that's a bond forfeiture you have to deal with. If your client shows up and tests dirty, that's another bond forfeiture. You may be issuing a warrant for their arrest. We're not probation officers. We're not pretrial. But as lawyers, ethically, we're required to do what's in the best interest of our clients. And so there's a lot of individuals who say, well, my job is to handle the case and the case alone. Well, I hate to break it to you. Your client's case is their life. To determine the best outcome in the course for a case, you have to know your client. And nowadays, this just really does warm my heart to see a lot of law schools are teaching on the holistic approach to legal representation. You have law schools that are now partnering with public defender's office, DA's offices, and courts to come in and practice the holistic approach to a client. No longer is the black and white of did you do it, did you not do it, can they prove it, did you have the right circumstances, etc. That noise, as I like to say, still exists. But ethically speaking, as an attorney, we're required to know our client, to know the best course of action. So when you want to say, I'm not a probation officer, I'm not pretrial, that's not my job, it is your job.
And we understand that you have there's a lot of cases on dockets. I can only, what people also don't understand, so Vickie, although she is the interim first assistant, we still do a lot of things. So for instance, today in the Atlas Court, we have our Thanksgiving spread. And so I have my whole team that is preparing for, we have about 21 people in the program right now. And so I always make sure they're gonna get Thanksgiving, and I make sure there's going to be Christmas. Because a lot of times we know this is the only time they'll ever get that. I'm not cooking it, let me be real clear. Soul Man's Barbecue will be catering for them today. But we know that this is the first time that they may get that full Thanksgiving meal, or Vickie did not know she was doing it, but she partnered with me early on. And I would just tell her, this is what we're doing today, because she was over all the specialty courts. Well, she has a takeover spirit, y'all. So she'll come down and she's like, well, I don't understand why we don't have orange tablecloths and why you don't have, man, people just want food. What are you talking about? But because of her, even though we're standing here right now, my courtroom is being decorated so that people can feel like they're really having an awesome Thanksgiving meal. But the reason I say that, we know that you can't possibly know all of your clients. We get it. We get it. But if you don't at least try to get some of the basics out of them, at least some of the basics, then you will face that client that now you have to follow them further in the criminal justice system. So we like to say, well, I like to say, if you think about The Blind Side, how many people saw that movie? All right. So if you look at The Blind Side, now we're not going to talk about the issues later on, and people may have been sued and things of that nature. Let's think about
We created the PowerPoint before all of that.
Let's think about the positive aspects of the movie. So with this, I mean, they were what? They were the coaches. They were supportive. We had the encouragement. That was, she was the biggest cheerleader on the side. You got that quarterback, right? You are that person that's guiding your client. And lastly, as you know, he was the best offensive tackle ever to play the position. that you have to be that person that is what? Running interference. That's all we're asking you to do. And when we say run interference, it may be the fact that you're going to the court with a prosecutor, of course. We're not asking anybody to ex parte. That you're going and you're like, hey, what are you going to say, Vic?
Don't get caught.
She said, don't get caught. Don't listen to what she says. Don't listen to these words. But a lot of times it is, you're doing the things that the parents in the blind side did, that you're trying to protect that person because sometimes they can't protect themselves because, as Vickie said early on, these are the things on the screen. The minute that a person gets arrested, when Vickie was saying, Rocky, people don't know the whole process. I will say that I am probably lucky and blessed that I did not have to go through that. Now, my mother will be the first to say, I am so glad that you decided to be a prosecutor and a lawyer, because there's another way that I saw you going early in life. I don't know what she means by that, but when she was like, Rocky, if you knew the emotions and the things that were going on from the time a person gets arrested, I was like, oh my. And so she's like, even if there is just someone who's there who can help navigate that, then that will relieve a lot of the frustration and the apprehension and things that people feel.
Absolutely. I challenge anyone that for the things that we're asking our clients to do, we need to do them ourselves. Try to go in and walk through intake. Know what it's like, that the various searches, to be in all of that noise. Know what it's like to take public transportation from point A to point B. The only way that we can be capable of truly representing our clients is a little bit walk a mile in their shoes. Come from that place of, I've been there, I've seen it. And even though we can't live their lives, that empathy level to be able to come and say, Judge, I was at the bus stop, bus didn't come, to be able to know that there are different pitfalls, you'll be able to argue your case better. But more importantly, that client is gonna know that you are dialed in and there for them. And that's the key. I heard somebody say yes. That is the key. We're dialed in. That's what we're here for. Know your job. Okay, love your job. And I'm gonna say this, and every time I say it, Rocky gets so upset with me. I'm always like this. If I cannot be dialed in 100% in what I am doing, it is time for me to let that go and let somebody else take up the mantle and do something different. If you hate your job, you're gonna despise your clients. You're gonna talk down to your clients. You're not going to encourage your clients to do the different things. You're gonna be condescending. Why weren't you hearing this? And why weren't you, and why didn't you do this and that? It's gonna just be nothing but you're adding to their trauma. We're not here to add to the trauma. We're here to help alleviate and mitigate the trauma.
And just like with this next slide, we hear this all the time. Well, it's not my job to get folks arrested. All we're saying is if you see it's a problem, and I tell people all the time, I can't help if I don't know. So when we have people that say, well, we don't want to do what Vickie is asking to do, where you go run interference, or you go, and she's real good, well, Judge, I just need to talk to you about it. And I go, okay, Vickie. That we're not saying you're telling us stuff so that we can get them arrested or so we can get a warrant issued out for them. That's not what this is. But if we do it the right way, the best thing we can do is what? We can ask to speak with a judge, because as I tell people every day, you can be your own best advocate. You can be your own best advocate. I mean, it's great when we have the lawyers who are there to actually speak for them, but here's the deal, they can't get in front of us. They can't, well, in my court, they do just kind of walk in like we're good friends. But you have to realize that you have to be that person that can at least get them in the door, or at least run interference so that, okay, there's a dirty UA, but let's talk about why. And let's talk about other things we can do other than incarceration. Let's talk about, something else. And as I tell people, now you can't come in every week with a relapse. You can't come in every week and quote the Donnie McClurkin song, "We fall down, but yet we get up." We can't talk about that every week. But we can at least try to give them a heads up. If you give the court a heads up, then maybe there can be a different outcome.
Pretrial is your best friend, lawyers. I'll say it again, many people may disagree. They're your best friends, because often people in pretrial, they do not want to see your client go to jail. They do not want the headache of that paperwork, of that dirty UA and what have you. So you need to get to know who's the pretrial officer assigned in your client's case. You need to build that rapport with that section and that division so that that pretrial officer feels comfortable giving you the heads up and saying, such and such did not show. Such and such did not blah, blah, blah. I have an ELM violation that's saying blah, 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 blah. Because that gives you time to prepare. There may be an absolutely legitimate reason why there was an ELM violation. But you can't do the research when you're sitting up there finding it in insane time with the judge. But if you have a pretrial officer that's willing to call you and the prosecutor up and say, hey, this is what we have going on, that gives that defense attorney an opportunity to check on what's going on with my client. And let me just make this clear. Everyone's like, oh, if you call the client and tell the client they have a dirty UA, oh, blah, 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 they're not gonna show. They're gonna show or they're not gonna show, okay? We don't have a magic 8-ball. Our goal is to do the best we can with what we have. And if we can find out, and I start and let all of my clients know, I understand addiction. I understand the world. But you have to be honest. You have to be open. You have to be trusting. And our clients do not trust the system. They do not trust us. It's what I like to call the armor that's necessary to survive this big bad world. If you want to see some resilient individuals, it was freezing this morning. But we have people that are homeless under a bridge trying to figure out how they're going to feed themselves as well as their pets. And so with it, pretrial calls me up. My phone has been blowing up all day with violations. And you know what I can do? Send my investigator out, figure out what's going on here. And at the end of the day, if my client had a relapse, he had a relapse. We're going to tell the judge, you had a relapse, but we have a plan. All of this is being able to walk into the court with a plan. That's all the judge wants. Something that they can say that I am protecting the community, I am protecting the client, and I am protecting myself. So, get to know your pretrial officer. Have them to call you up. Make it that you're welcoming to them so that you can get that heads up. It's the difference between a warrant and a plan.
A warrant and a what?
Plan.
Oh, okay.
I prefer a plan.
Okay, all right. Just making sure. So as you saw from the last screen, when it showed the sanctions, like Vickie was saying, just because a person has a dirty UA or something of that nature, first of all, I will say know your court too. You have to know who that judge is. You have to know that court to know that, well, these are the things she's probably going to do first. We're probably going to have a conversation. It's probably going to be a warning or something of that nature. It's not going to be automatically, you go to jail, don't collect $200. It's not going to be an automatic thing like that. But you also have to look at the main difference between a pretrial client and a probation client. And we try to use the words like client, participant, because not everyone is going to ultimately end up being a defendant on a case. I had to rewrite my brain after being a prosecutor I've been a lawyer for over 29 years. Yes, I started practicing law when I was 12. And of those 29 years, I was a prosecutor for 19 between Tarrant County and Dallas County. And yes, I only stayed off on 30. I didn't go past I-30. I went from one office to the other. But you have to realize that I had to even rework my brain and say citizen accused, or I would, have to say that not all people go from being a pretrial client to being a probationer. Sometimes you can stop it before then, and if you stop it before then then they don't have the orange jumpsuit. It becomes more of like, how many people have seen this or heard this? You can't wait for them to get on the program or in probation, because it's kind of like the obituary, right? Let me see if my little thing works. All right, there it is. I don't know, can y'all see that little circle? Let me put a little arrow by it. Oh, there it is. So it's what they tell you all the time in church. It's what you do in between the dash, right? That is what all of this is. It is what you're doing in between the dash. That is between, we'll use this headstone as an example. It is between the arrest and whatever's going to happen with the case ultimately, okay? So what is going on in between the dash? Are you trying to go to the classes? How many people do we have in here are actually community partners, whether it's with mental health or in the addiction services? Thank y'all. I do have to say thank you, because we cannot do it without you. We cannot. But y'all are the way and the best way for them to fill in this dash, because they are going to your treatment programs. They are being med compliant. They are actually trying to show up and take the classes and courses, so that if it should be that they are going to be on a probation or hopefully in a diversion program, they've already knocked half the things out. They've already done most of the things before they even get into the program.
And I say to lawyers, I understand that Dallas County, Harris County, and larger counties, Collin County, we have a different infrastructure than more rural areas. And I hear the call for the rural areas. We have an answer for that. Partnerships, okay? There are plenty of providers out there, even in small rural areas, that are willing to partner with you and take on, either because of a social worker needing to have hours for their license, case manager needing to complete this for their class. You have to dig a little deep and be very, very creative to make that dash count. So if you have a local school that's in the area, a hospital, or what have you, tap into what providers exist. Work something out with them, whether it's with a bigger organization or just simply your office. Having a social worker and case manager is a game changer, because we are not clinicians. And this is what I have to say, lawyers, because we think we know everything. What we want to do is we want to tell the clinician, this is what I want to see happen. We need to let the clinician tell us about treatment. The clinician needs to guide us and how we need to guide our clients and link our clients. So again, for all you providers that exist, thank you, because without you, there would not be a concept of holistic approach. There would not be a concept of problem solving. We would still be basically kicking the can down the road.
And so this slide is self-explanatory. Know your population of defendants. We have them varying the whole scale. I mean, we don't know if we're getting a teenager 1 week or if we're getting, bless their heart, we're getting someone that's in their 60s, 65. It is amazing that you have to know your population. But also, we wanted to put a few stats in here now. These are statistics from 2013, and I put those in there just so you could see what the difference will be. So as you can see, we had those who were incarcerated, and we're just talking local jails. When they looked at it, as most people will say, not all behavior is criminal behavior. I don't know how many times we need to tell people that. Not all behavior is criminal behavior, because if you look at mental health, if you look at substance abuse, those are the main reasons people are mostly in our jails and prisons, right? But then if you look at, and this might be kind of far for y'all to see, but when you come to 2022, some of the last stats that they had, when you start looking at mental health in America in general, y'all, it is increasing. I don't know if it's because now people are willing to talk about it, because I don't know if many of y'all are of the generation or the culture of some of us, whereas within my family, it's either pray about it or don't say nothing. But I see Jimmy right here on the corner. He got this parka on, and it's July in Texas. oh, he gonna be all right. He just, no, but the problem is, depending on what that culture and community is, they're just not gonna talk about it. They just don't wanna talk about it. But now people are starting to talk about it. Now we're trying to get the help, but what is most alarming is the youth. That is the most alarming, I think, when we talk about mental health in America. And when we talk about knowing your audience and knowing that mental health is now on the forefront. I hate that it took till 2024 for us to get here, and just hearing that this summit was created in 2018. So what were we doing prior to 2018? What were we doing? We were probably criminalizing and incarcerating those who probably just really needed help, right? Now, we know that there are bad people in the world that do bad things. Well, there's a place for them. But there's also a place for people if we can get them in these pretrial diversion programs. Like when we say know your audience, you're going to have to know, as Vickie says, know their criminal record. You're going to know if they've had prior issues or if they've been through a program before.
And the key is knowing your client and knowing what generation they come from. You now know the stigmas you need to break down. There are a lot of individuals who believe, just as Joan said, I can pray it out of you. It's your diet. It's the company you keep. You messed around with the wrong woman and some hoodoo hootenanny happened, and what have you. Oh, it happens. If you ask my grandmother, Maybell down the street is not to be messed with. And so with it all, knowing your audience allows you as an attorney to know how to approach the judge, approach the prosecutor. Because this is a little triangle. It's more than just you. You have to convince the judge. You have to convince the prosecutor. And there are plenty of people who want to say this is called soft on crime. Somehow or another, I just don't think the guy who's suffering from schizophrenia, that's panhandling with the criminal trespass, is breaking the scale when it comes to the people we need to arrest. And understand, knowing your audience is going to allow for you to talk about those more aggravated offenses. Because let's face it, anybody with behavioral health issues and concerns, it's not just a criminal trespass. We're looking at aggravated assault, because anything could be an aggravated assault. If I take this microphone and hit Judge Jones, this is now a weapon. Who knew? I won't do
No,
that.
y'all realize my name
They were
is
waiting
Rocky.
to see it. They wanted to see, and I wanted to see the hush go. Is she going to do it?
I know.
Is she going to do it? I'm not going to do it. I don't.
Well, thank you. Just know the name is Rocky for a reason, but continue.
So knowing your audience allows for you to be able to formulate your argument, okay? It allows for you to bring in the people you need to bring. But also knowing your audience allows for you to also dig for resources, because who's best to talk to a young person but another young person? Who's best to talk to an African-American male but another African-American male, okay? And so we have to span the demographics. There are other religious concerns to take into consideration. So as much information as you can get about your client is further to help you to not only just know your audience, to formulate your argument, it's going to help you in the long run to come up with a plan.
And basically, Vickie just summed up what this slide says right here. When we say working with the accused, you got to work with all of them. And also, there's one thing on here I did want to point out. Test for the correct drugs. Test for the correct drugs. Because we have, for a while, we had the K2, and we got the Delta 8 strand, and we had the bath soaps, and I mean, it was things out here in the world. So it's one thing to talk to them about it, but when I have people that come in and go, well, I'm a poly user, Judge, I'm like, okay, a poly user. Well, which are the drugs that you use? And so she starts going down, the spectrum, and it's like, if you don't have the conversation or test for it, then you can't address it. Because we know some things have different effects on, other way that we can even reach them. If you can't hear me, if you can't even see me because of the things that are going on with the drugs that you may have used, it's very important that you really get to know them. And as we kind of talked about, and I want to say, I love the previous speaker when he actually, the bunkhouse boys, when he talked about choice. When he talked about choice, the pretrial officer and judge are the ones that may have to show the defendant a clear path. Because sometimes people don't understand what the right choice is, right? They don't understand what the right choice is. Sometimes we have to lead them into the right choice. And then I always like to tell people it is at least 10 things that people can do that require zero talent. Zero talent. You don't have to jump the highest or run the fastest. But as we can see, being on time, work ethic, I mean, y'all can read these for yourselves. But it is amazing that if you give, we all live in a reward system society. I have a 9-year-old son, bless his heart, and yes, if y'all are doing the math, I was that person, that age, that had that child. And he does me in. But I look at him and I look at his little classmates, and we are in a reward society. Not only is it that we're in this everybody get a participation ribbon, which annoys me, but it's the fact that we are in a reward society. So even if you can look at any of these things and tell that client or tell that person, look, you've accomplished something, it makes them feel like that they're worthy and they can complete that program.
Now, I wanted to quickly zoom back to why it's super important to test for the right things and to ask the right questions. We're now tearing down barriers for our clients, okay? So if you don't have the right answers, you don't have the right information, you're making a plan that's gonna fail. I mean, we're basically masking the problem. And our clients have learned, sometimes, as Judge Jones says, they may not be ready. Being ready is hard, okay? Getting ready is hard. Having that support is hard. So make sure you're asking the right questions. You're digging in the right area so that you can come up with a plan that's very intentional and impactful, not just a plan. And sometimes you have to have the heavy. Sometimes it is going to require a jail sanction. Sometimes, as my grandma say, people don't believe fat back is greasy.
Fat meat greasy. You got to say
is.
fat meat greasy.
But as long as we're telling our clients up front, I'm prepping you. Here they come, y'all. Here they come. I told y'all I'm going right back to the 80s and 90s. I'm 12. My dad's yelling for me to come downstairs and fold up clothes.
And the reason we say that, y'all, is because this or that.
It's this or that.
You gotta tell them now, either we can stay out and do the things we're supposed to, or you're gonna get that. And that is, you're probably gonna do some sanctions, you're probably gonna get an ELM. Which one do you wanna do? We gotta, as Vickie says, you gotta make it real plain to them. And sometimes you just have to, after we do all the good things, and I love to watch it. When Vickie would come in, y'all, she starts off, especially with the mental health docket, she'll be, really all nice and touchy-feely. Man, by the third time they're coming in, she is talking to them like this. What, do you want to go to jail? What do you want to do? And I just get to sit there and go, what she said. But sometimes you have to make it very plain and explain to them, these are your options. These options can be temporary or permanent. You make the choice. Because at some point, as I tell people all the time, choices and chances, that's what we all have, choices and chances. And I will give you both of them. So you got to figure out how you want to make them work. And so when we looked at this, we said pretrial, actually what we hope that all of y'all get from this is pretrial builds a foundation of success. What we're trying to do is get them successful in what? These different diversion programs, specialty courts, probation.
You name it. And the reason why I am such a huge fan of pretrial, and I know that seems kind of odd, is because if I stand up there in front of the judge, it's being perceived self-serving. I represent the client. So of course I'm gonna say all these great things. The prosecutor's job, represent the community. Of course they're gonna say all bad things. But pretrial should not have a dog in this fight. The provider does not have a dog in the fight. They're not there regarding the merits of the case. They're there regarding the behavior. Therefore, as many individuals in the community that you have on your side that can come testify, as much as you can engage with pretrial about the services that they can offer, it only increases the chances for your client to be successful and to remain out of jail.
And so as we were, as I tried to show with the last slide, is yes, they're always being graded. They are always being graded. So we have to make sure that you know what that grade is, okay? And so with a lot of the next slides, as we keep telling everyone, it's not that we're asking you to be one particular person, right? Sometimes it does take a village. Sometimes we have to do this until we can get that baton passed to the next person. One of the big things I think we wanted to talk about before we wrap up, because we have about a minute left, they can't do it alone. They cannot do it alone. This is what we would hope. Diversion is generally divided into 3 categories. We know that y'all have these slides. Well, you'll have the presentation in your handouts, but it's not hug-a-thug anymore. Y'all, it's not. As Vickie alluded to, this is what people think of when they say divert or when they think of diversion programs of old. It's not what this is now. These are just some of the brief programs that we have in Dallas County, which y'all probably have some in your counties as well. But we just wanted to make sure that you know that if you successfully complete diversion programs, that most jurisdictions will do one of these things, okay? We can't say all will do it, but they will do one of these 3 things. So here's the main takeaways that we want y'all to have. Review your different pretrial guidelines, have assessments. We need you to do the work, and as Vickie says, we have to work with our partners in the community.
You have to. There's no way for a lawyer to properly assess a client. We can go off our experience, but you need professionals, okay? You need to arm your file with all the necessary information, and the only way to do it is, honestly, is to boot and the grit and get out there and start digging up resources, digging up individuals, digging up people who want to partner with you. Even in rural areas, there's somebody who wants to, a retired social worker, a retired case manager, somebody wants to do something. Judicial Commission on Mental Health, Texas Indigent Defense Commission, there are many, HHS, there are many organizations that have grants and money for you to start a pilot program or to kick up a program. All you need is somebody who has the desire and the chutzpah, and they will give you a little bit of money to start. And that's what it has to be. Instead of looking at this person to do it or that person to do it, I'm going to quote Michael Jackson. I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. No, okay, I won't do that. I was going to really show that basically Adele has nothing on me. But we're asking you, as you sit here, you're here for a reason. You're here to soak in this great information. Get the card of the person that's at your table. Get the card of the person that's at the next table. Make a connection. Ask for help. We're not in this alone. This is your army. We are an army together, and together we are strong, and together we will continue to change the trajectory of what people look at when they hear a holistic approach to the criminal justice system.
And remember, use kind, use smart, use important. If nobody else tells you that today, we told y'all that. And in conclusion, this is what we would ask y'all to do. There's going to be some evaluations. So we would just ask if...
But I like it, I love it, I want some more of it. I try so hard, I can't rise above it. Don't know what...
So thank you so much. Vickie and I will be around if y'all want some more of this show that we have. But hopefully we have said something that you can take away. Thank you so much.